Steven Tyler on overcoming addictions, or the constant desire to do and be better with Garth Brooks. Lenny has had the pleasure of sitting down with countless artists, actors, and politicians to find out what makes them tick. Less than a year after retiring from broadcasting, Lenny created Spark Greatness in 2019 as a tool to remind us all of our capabilities, to better understand ourselves, and to recognize a better life is within reach. Sometimes all we need is a spark. SPARK is an acronym that stands for self, purpose, accountability, respect, and kindness. Lenny and his wife Stacy married in Clemens, North Carolina in 1998. In 2005, the couple adopted their first child, Aviana Sophia, followed by son Zayden Michael and daughter Melania Leon in 2007. The family currently resides in Anthem, Arizona, just outside of Phoenix. In addition to Spark, Lenny continues to run a media company he founded in 2010, Mad Dog Media, and works on a corporate management team serving veterans and the disabled community. And without further ado, coming to us live from Anthem, Arizona, Mr. Lenny Michael Ovadia.
Thank you so very much, Emily. I feel like that was awfully fancy for me, but I'm definitely grateful. So thank you for that. It's an honor to be with all of you today. A special honor too, not just because I have so much respect for each and every one of you and what you do as educators and in the education field, but I grew up in North Carolina, so it's a very special place for me. So thank you for letting me be with you today and share a little bit of Spark. As Emily mentioned, Spark is actually an acronym that came to me, and we break it down letter by letter, and we'll do a little bit of that here today. But I wanted to share with you something kind of interesting. You may find interesting. I come from a large family. I have majority of boys. I have one sister. We call her the princess. And the majority of my brothers are contractors. And so the joke was I was the only one who couldn't really hammer the nail in straight. So instead of picking up the hammer, I picked up the microphone. And so that's why I do what I do. Wasn't long ago, I say that, but it was really actually around 2010. My wife and I were living in Pennsylvania with our 3 beautiful adopted children, a full house, all newborns. So we started adopting with one. The birth mother kept getting pregnant. We adopted the second, then birth mother got pregnant. We adopted the third. So we found ourselves in this big, beautiful home with 3 newborns and desperately needing help. So in comes my sweet mother-in-law, who was living in Winston-Salem, North Carolina at the time, and she agreed to move in with us. So we were finishing off a room in the basement, and we had to put in an egress window. Not sure if you know what that is, but you're basically cutting through a foundation wall. It's a secondary escape. It's emergency escape. Conveniently enough, I called upon one of my brothers who came out, threw some tools in his pickup, and there we stood, face to face, facing a wall. I looked at my brother. His name is Josh. I said, bro, I don't even know where to start. Where do you start cutting into a wall 10 inches thick of concrete to make a hole? He laughed at me. He said, stand back. He threw a pair of goggles at me. I put them on. He put a pair of goggles on. He picked up this saw with a blade the size of a bike tire, cranked it up, let out probably the loudest yee-haw I had ever heard, and just commenced to cut into concrete. I mean, slicing it like it was a loaf of Wonder Bread. And I just stood back and watched all the concrete dust blowing all over me. And when he was done, he put the tool down. I'm looking at him, looking at this big hole in the wall. I said, you made that look so easy. And he said something to me that I'll never forget, and I want to share with you today as we get into this Spark Talk. He looked at me and he said, bro, any job is easy if you have the right tools. So I say to you, any job is easy if you have the right tools. This was not the first wall my brother saw. He knew exactly what tool to reach for to break through that wall. He could have easily grabbed a hammer and a pick, and I'd still be there trying to cut a hole in that basement wall for my mother-in-law. Very metaphoric. In fact, I reached out to him last week and I said, do you remember saying that to me, bro? And he said, I say that all the time. I go, yeah, but do you realize how deep that is? He goes, no. He goes, I guess I'm smart. He is, and I'm proud of all of my siblings. But I want to use that as a catalyst to get into what our discussion is today. So whatever the wall is that you're facing right now, having the right tools to break through is important. Think about it. How much time do we spend using the wrong tools, trying to break through? We get tired, we get frustrated, we get exhausted, and you carry that into every other aspect of your life. When if you only knew the tools to reach for first, you could have that same adrenaline rush to break through that wall. That's what Spark is. So how do we get there? How many of you are best friends with your GPS? I'm best friends with my GPS. You type in the destination, it magically goes to space, comes down to your phone, 1,000 feet forward, left turn, and you arrive at your destination, right? So we think the most important thing is the destination. So we've got to make sure that we have the right address, got to punch in that right destination. It's where I'm going. It's where I want to be. It's your destiny, your destination. That is important. But there's one thing more important. What's the first thing that your phone does after you punch in your destination? It has to figure out where you are. You can't lie to your GPS. It knows where you are. You have to know where you're starting first. So the first letter of Spark is S. It stands for self, being self-aware. Know where you are first. Here's why that's more important, because your destination, it ain't moving. Your destination is going to be there when you get there. You're the one moving. Now the question is, which direction are you going to move in? Self-awareness. I don't know how much time you spend thinking about how you handle things, how you process things, but it's very important because that determines where you're going to go from there. It's also about being a student, student of your own life. It's hard. Human nature, we want to look outside of us and critique everybody else. Oh, I know what's wrong with that person. I know what's wrong with that person, but you're not looking at yourself. Are you perfect? No, nobody's perfect. Well, what specifically about you isn't? Nobody goes there usually, right? Or we'll go to our physical attributes, surface, got to go deeper. GPS, where are you really? How are you processing things? The meaning we attach to things determines the outcome. I want to give you an example. I don't know if you've ever heard of the father and the two sons. The father's an alcoholic. Son grows up, becomes an alcoholic, sitting across from a therapist. The therapist says, "Why do you drink so much?" He goes, "Because that's all I ever saw my dad do. What'd you expect? He was an alcoholic, so I'm an alcoholic." The other son never touched a drink. Same therapist. "Why don't you drink?" "Because my father was an alcoholic, and I saw the destruction that that can do to a family." Same stimulus, two very distinctively different outcomes. The meaning we attach to things determines how we respond to things. I want to admit to you one of my many faults. I could bring my wife out here. She'd probably go on and on, but I'll just give you one for the sake of time. I'm a very passionate person, as you can tell. And so sometimes that works out to my benefit. Sometimes it works to my detriment. Not long ago, in fact, I retired from radio in Pittsburgh, and I happened to have a boss who was a bit of a challenge. I won't say bad boss because he actually helped me become a really good leader, but he's definitely a challenge. He liked to argue a lot in front of other people, and that was frustrating because he'd always win. He's the boss, right? Well, you take somebody like me who's pretty passionate and will argue his point pretty passionately, and it just doesn't mix well. And so I remembered we had a bad argument one day, and I was on my way home from the radio station thinking to myself how angry I was about the whole scenario. And not only how angry I was at him, but the fact that it happened in front of everybody, that I lost my cool in front of everybody. He lost his cool in front of everybody. And it was just an unfortunate situation. And I vowed to myself that I would not let that happen again. But then I had to stop pointing at him. The meaning that I attached to it was not about him. He's been very consistent with his behavior. He was always that way. How I'm processing it, how I handle it, that determines everything. Where I'm starting from, the next time he wants to start an argument, or challenge, I'm going to agree with everything he says. And so, sure enough, the next day in the kitchen of the radio station where there were people, he came to me and addressed the issues that he addressed the day before, and he asked me about them. And I told him, took care of it. "Well, what do you mean you took care of it?" "I did this, this, and this." "Well, that's what I told you to do." I'm like, "Yeah, that's exactly what I did." "Was there anything else that you needed me to do? Because I know that you mentioned this." "No." "Okay." At that point, he stopped. And I felt so good. Like after that, I grew a little bit, made me feel more empowered. If you're facing a wall right now and it's challenging you, it's not about the wall. It's about your meaning. What does that wall in front of you mean? Are you telling yourself you can't get through? I did some listening early on in a precursor meeting that we had to this agenda, and I did a little bit of listening to some of the educators, and they said, we're all sick and tired of this COVID madness and how it's changed things. And It's crazy. Nothing is the same anymore. We're sick and tired of it. And I'm right there with you. I'm sick and tired of it. Change the way we have to live our lives for the moment. And it feels like it's been a long moment, right? But here's the reality. If your way of dealing with this COVID mess is telling yourself that you're sick and tired of having to deal with this COVID mess, how well do you think that that's going to work out for you? If every day you start out thinking, I'm so sick and tired of this, whether it's COVID or anything else, if that is the way that you handle it, then you're not really handling it, are you? You're going through the motions. Be honest with yourself. Do you tend to go towards the negative when there's a challenge? Have you trained your brain? Is that kind of your behavioral pattern? Well, that's just the way that I am. I'll say this to you because I say it to me. My body's made of 65 trillion cells and they're all changing every day. I'm getting a little older, a little uglier. That's my reality. Whether I want to change or not, it's happening. I'd rather make it work to my benefit than not. So if you're telling yourself you can't do that, I'm here to tell you that you absolutely can. You absolutely can. And I'm hoping that this will spark something in you to take that action. The next letter, P's. I got a couple of P's for you. Purpose and passion. Many of you were driven into this profession by purpose and a passion to enrich the lives of others, to help others grow, to help nurture others, to help others learn. At some point of your life, you made the decision, you made the commitment to yourself. This is going to be my calling. This is going to be my passion. This is what I want for my life, my family, my future. Such a noble career path. I have so much. Some of the most powerful people in my life have been educators, and I'm not just saying that. And I'll give you some examples later on in the talk about that. But it doesn't look anything like you thought it would, at least for the moment. How are you going to do it now? How are you doing it now? Here's a Zoom call, a WebEx call. It's not the same anymore. You thought it was going to be textbooks and curriculum and lesson plans. I don't even know if you still use those, but instead COVID comes along and it literally flipped the desks over, right? Literally changed everything. Nothing looks like the way it looked before. Look at this. I see a bunch of names. I don't see smiles and faces. I don't see bodies. I see names, and that's okay. I'm grateful to see each and every one of you here. COVID came along, turned the desk upside down on us, didn't it? It feels different. It's changed. But let me ask you a question. Has COVID changed your purpose? Has COVID changed your passion? Let's go back to the beginning. Let's rewind the tape, my radio days. When you first started, what was driving you? Helping to enrich the lives of others, help others to learn and to grow. And for you to learn and grow as a result, it gave you fulfillment. COVID's changed the way you do it. But has COVID robbed you of that? You got to ask yourself that. We're going to go back to the GPS again. Ask yourself that. Are you allowing COVID to rob you of your passion? Are you allowing COVID to rob you of your purpose? Are you allowing it to second guess yourself and the impact that you have on these people's lives? The role that you play, that you wanted to play early on, but then COVID comes along and it changes everything, right? Because we're sick and tired. You're human. I'm not beating up on you. I'm guilty as charged. I deal with it too. But I also know that if I just sit there and I stare at the wall and I grab a pick and a hammer, they're not the right tools. I need a power saw, that blade that's going to help me get through this, to break through that wall. Don't you allow this temporary situation to permanently change your purpose and passion. Dr. Miles Monroe says, seasons are temporary. If you could just stay warm enough through the winter, summer's coming. Spring is coming. Don't let COVID rob you of your passion and your purpose. You thought it was going to be through textbooks and classrooms, but realistically, you're teaching through your actions and how you're handling this change. How you handle this change. Are you going in with passion? Are you going in with the idea that we're going to make a difference? Or are you going into this feeling like we're all sick and tired of this? Masks, no masks, Zoom, WebEx. Don't tell yourself that you don't have the same impact. You have more, because these lessons that you are now exemplifying for these people watching you closely will stay with them their entire lives. I still keep touch with my 8th grade physical science teacher, because he had that kind of impact on me. And I know that he didn't think he did until I reached out to him in my 20s and we've stayed in touch ever since. I'm pushing 50 now. God bless him. He's still with us. Consider this. What if your life has changed so that you may change lives? That's pretty deep, isn't it? I don't even know where that came from. It actually came to my head, but it didn't come from me. I honestly think it. And I'll tell you when it came to me. After adopting those kids in 2010, the market crashed. I signed on a radio station in 1998. In 2010, new owners, new manager came in, said that you could stay if you work for half your salary. I said, would you work for half your salary? Bad, shouldn't have said that. Passion, temperament, right? I lost my job. I had 3 beautiful children. We actually had a 4th. We had a young lady we took in even before we adopted the children. Her name is Sade. She's a beautiful mother now. Beautiful children. She came to us when she was 9. Big brother, big sister. 4 children, a wife and a mother-in-law in a basement with a beautiful egress window. But I remember driving around thinking to myself about how horrible this change is. How am I going to get through this? Because now it's not just about me. If it was just about me, I could handle it. But I got people that are depending on me. So instead of feeling sorry for myself, again, that voice popped in. What if your life was changed so that you might change lives? 2010, I'm sharing it with you on this call today for a reason. Please don't forget the reason that you started. Don't forget your passion. Don't forget your purpose. It's important. The next letter, A. It's one of my favorites because it's one of the most powerful tools of my life. And it's what helped me get from where I was in 2010 to where I am now. And continues to help me because I'm nowhere near where I want to be. Destination, I'm still calculating route. Action and accountability. How many of you, when you get lost, turn down the radio? Right? You make a wrong turn and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got to turn down my radio. Why? You ever think about why? Why do we turn down the radio when we get lost? Does that like somehow magically enhance our sense of direction? No, not really, right? But maybe kinda, if you think about it. And thank you for all the reactions. I appreciate your participation very much. The reason why we turn down the radio is because it helps our focus better, right? It's not all of a sudden now we magically have a GPS and we're going to find where we are, but it's a distraction. Distraction. The word action is in there. You're taking your focus away from where it needs to be. 90% of all news is negative. That's not me talking, that's fact. Would you agree? 90% of all news is negative. And the rest of the 10% is probably just weather and sports. And if your team loses, then there's that negative. It just increased. Now it's 95%, right? So think about that. We are living in an age where you can't get away from news and information. It's everywhere. It's all around us. Let me share another stat with you. On average, you have 65,000 thoughts per day. Cleveland Clinic study, I think. 65,000 thoughts per day. How many of those thoughts do you think are negative? 80%. 80% of the thoughts you had today as a whole were not positive thoughts. They were negative thoughts. So now you got a 90% range of negative news that we're hit with every time we turn around. And you have 80% of your thoughts for the day are negative. We're doomed. Right? Oh, no. Think about this. The actions you need to take: turn down the noise, focus, powerful tool. Stay informed. I'm not saying to walk around and not know what's going on in the world and be oblivious. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance can kill you. But the reality of it is you don't have to let that determine your mood, determine your actions. Turn down the noise has been one of the things that has helped me tremendously. And I'm saying I love radio, communications. I love television. I love these means, but I also know what they do to us. And if we are already naturally hooked up in a way to we're thinking negatively, why do you think 90% of the news is negative? It's because that's where the money is. They don't get paid to inform us much anymore. They shock you, because if they shock you, you're going to pay more attention. And if you pay more attention, you're more likely to be outraged at the shock. And then you go to your social media and share your outrage and find people who cannot believe what they're seeing. I'm now outraged with you. And it spreads and spreads and spreads. And where's your focus? How many of you see people arguing on Facebook or Twitter or whatever social media you fancy? And you look at it and you get caught up in that scroll hole, right? You're like, man, I can't believe. Turn down the noise. If it's not helping you, it's hurting you. Turn down the noise. So the ancestor to every action is a thought. It starts up here first. So what actions do you take? How do you turn down the noise? I want to share something personal with you here. So my day consists of when I wake up at 4:15 in the morning. I know that sounds crazy to a lot of you, but it works perfect for me. I like to get a head start on the day. So 4:15, I get up, I drive to the gym, I work out till like right around 7 o'clock. I shower, change at the gym, and then I go into work. During my workouts, I used to listen to hip hop. I love all kinds of music. Hip hop tend to change my mood. Made me feel aggressive, right? Not so bad at the gym. You want to have some aggressiveness. But then one day I realized, it's kind of fun. I realize every morning I wake up and the first thing that I do is I listen to a bunch of angry men screaming and cursing at me. I need to change my pattern. I need to change my habit. So I started to listen to things that might be more helpful, more healthy for me. So I started to listen to lectures. I started to listen to other speakers, all kinds of things that might benefit me from a healthier standpoint. So now I'm working out, I'm training my body and I'm training my mind. That's how I look at it. And I'm not telling you to do this. Forgive me if it comes across that way. I'm just sharing this with you because these are the types of things that I do. Maybe instead of listening to the news, maybe you want to find something that's more healthy. Maybe a biography. Maybe whatever you're struggling with right now, you're not the first person who struggled with it. I tell this to people all the time when they call me and they're needing assistance. I say to them, and I know sometimes it's hard for us to imagine that anybody would understand, but unless you invented a new emotion, somebody out there understands. Because no matter what it is, all that it's doing is triggering an emotion in you. And you didn't invent a new emotion. We all feel anger the same. We all feel sadness the same. We all feel excitement the same, happiness the same, sadness, depression the same. The catalyst might change, the landscape might change, but the emotions don't. So don't put yourself in a situation and tell yourself that nobody would understand this. You didn't invent the problem. I promise you, somebody out there has been through it. The action you need to take is go find them. One of the upsides of being alive in this day and age is all you got to do is a search. You'll find something that'll pique your interest, and it's going to help you. It's going to help keep you focused. Turn down the noise. So what are your habits? I hope that you'll ask yourself that at some point today or maybe tomorrow, or even in the middle of doing something that you typically routinely do every day. And you go, you know what? This is a habit. Why do I do this? Ask yourself that question. Is this helping me? The next letter in Spark, and I like this a lot, it's respect. As educators, I know sometimes people aren't as respectful as they should be, especially this day and age. It's a difficult situation, and I have so much respect for your level of patience that each of you must have to go through what you go through each and every day. Aside from the way that the landscape has changed and how you do your jobs, but just the things that have come up as a result of it. My heart is with you guys. My prayers are with you guys. And I know you can handle whatever is being thrown your way. When we talk about respect, most times we think about respecting others, right? So important. Respecting authority, respecting our elders, super important. What's more important for me, for you? Self-respect. Respect yourself enough to want to change. Respect yourself to not be satisfied with where you are. I shared this the other day on my social media, and I'd love for you to follow me if you'd like. Are you complacent with coping? I find so many of us have just become complacent with coping. Like that's the best that we got. Like that's pretty much it. I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. And that's substantial enough this day and age. Trust me, I'm not poo-pooing on hanging in there. That's important. Coping is a very important life skill. We all have to cope. But is that it? Is that where you are? You're not going beyond that. I'm just going to cope. I'm just going to get through this. Respect yourself enough to want to make a positive change. Sparking greatness in yourself first and then in the lives of others. I can't give you what I don't have for myself. If I don't have very much respect for me, how much respect do you think I'm going to have for you? I can go through the motions. I can fake the funk if I want, but I don't want to be a fake. I don't want to be a phony. Self-respect. I have a friend, his name is Sean. He's got a great story. Sean was born on the wrong side of the tracks, got into trouble time and time again. Everybody thought that he was going to end up in jail, and guess where he ended up? He lived up to that expectation. He ended up in jail. 13 years. Bad decisions. Didn't just wake up in jail, right? A series of bad decisions. Talking himself into doing the wrong things, living up to the expectations other people had of him, and they weren't very high expectations. You get to keep every limitation you argue for. He kept a lot of them. He blamed the world. He was angry at the world. His family was the reason. His friends were the reason. His environment was the reason. But something happens when you do 13 years in jail. You think a lot about your life. And he got to a point where he realized that, you know what? I'm the common denominator in all of those things. I need to respect myself enough to hold myself to higher regard, to do better. I want to be better. I want to do better. When he got out of jail, he was committed to self-respect and then moving that into helping others to respect themselves, not settle, not allowing other people's expectations become his expectations, their expectations. I love this guy. He started a nonprofit. It's been over a year ago now. And I spoke to him just last week. He called me and he goes, I have some news to share with you. He goes, hey, that prison that I did my time in? I said, yeah. He said, they closed it down. And then he started crying. And I'm thinking, dude, why are you crying? Because they closed your prison down. And he said, you don't understand. They closed it down. We just put a bid in to buy it. I want to make it a transitional house for convicts struggling to get back into society again. And I'm like, man, whether you get it or you don't get it, you got it. So proud of him. And he loves using this hashtag TIIP, the impossible is possible. Great man. I want to share with you something that you might find interesting because I know you know this person. I was on the air with a drug addict who was sharing with me how many times he had come close to death. He said, I came so close to death so many times I can't even count them. Didn't matter to him. The only thing that mattered to him was chasing the high, chasing the high, chasing the high. His family resented him for it. Didn't change him. Kept chasing it. It was never about self-respect for him. It was about that instant gratification for him. Then one day somebody intervened, got him into a 12-step program, taught him about respecting himself enough to not put him through this, to not put his family through this, remind him how strong he is to be able to get through this, right? To break through that wall, to overcome those demons. And I remembered him looking over the console at me, tearing up, saying, I remembered every day I had to remind myself that I wasn't a bad person getting good. I was a sick person getting well. You're not a bad person getting good. You're a sick person getting well. Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, living legend, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the whole nine, bells and whistles, sweetheart of a man. Today, close to 10 years clean and sober, works directly with the Betty Ford Clinic, works with Northbound, I think is the name of the rehabilitation facility in Los Angeles. Imagine this, somebody teetering on using again. They got him on speed dial. Steven Tyler calls you, don't you do it. Don't you do it. Who's this? Steven Tyler. Amazing, right? Self-respect. Respect yourself enough to make the change for the better. I love that. One more story, if I may, from my radio days. A young man walks in, big smile. He's a fry cook and a busboy. He was going to college. That's what he did to pay on the side. He liked to sing. He liked to play guitar. He went up to his manager at the time and he asked his manager, hey, do you think I could come in on a Friday night or a Saturday night and sing to the crowds? Will you let me do it? And the manager laughed at him and said, you're a fry cook. He said, no, I sing. He goes, you're a busboy. I don't need a singer. I need a fry cook and a busboy. He didn't give up. He kept asking, and kept getting turned down. There was a restaurant that had opened up, he noticed, down the street from him. He walks in, introduces himself. Hey, I'm a singer. I know you just opened up. You think I can maybe come in? I can help you get a head start. I can pack a crowd in for you maybe on a Friday night or a Saturday night if you give me a chance. And the guy goes, oh, okay, we'll give it a shot. So he played that Friday and Saturday night. He made more money in those 2 days than he made in 3 weeks worth of paychecks being a fry cook and a busboy. Today, that fry cook has 2 Grammys, 5 CMA awards, 2 iHeartRadio Music Awards, and counting. He's a Carolina boy. He's Luke Combs, one of country music's rising stars. Super guy, super story. about self-respect. Don't doubt yourself. You can do this. You can break through the wall, but you have to respect yourself enough. Go back to those habits again, or the habits that you're going through every day. Are they representing the level of respect that you have for yourself? After respect, the last letter, K, is a special one for me. It's about keeping faith. Keeping faith. So in order to talk about keeping faith, I want to first talk about what causes us to lose faith. When things do not live up to our expectations, do we sometimes lose faith? When things don't look like how we thought they were supposed to look like, do we sometimes lose faith? It's easy for us to lose faith when you thought something was going to end up a certain way and it doesn't. You go through that spiral of emotion, disappointment, frustration, anger, which leads to blame, and it spills over into every other aspect of your life. We know we shouldn't do that, but that's the problem. Oftentimes, we know what to do, but we don't do what we know, right? We know what to do, but we don't do what we know to do. Keep faith. Personal story. My wife and I got married, as Emily had mentioned earlier in the talk, in Clemens, North Carolina. The year was 1998. We've been married for several years, and we realized that something was wrong. We weren't able to get pregnant. We weren't able to have children for some reason. And so we were living in York, Pennsylvania at the time. And we decided to get checked out. Hershey was not too far from York, Pennsylvania. Hershey, like the chocolate bar, chocolate town and all that. So there was a good clinic there. And so we decided to go to Hershey Clinic. And forgive me if I get a little emotional again on this one. So I vividly remember a doctor walking into this cold room, white coat, clipboard, sitting down, looking at his clipboard, looks up at Stacy and I sitting in the chairs in front of him, looked back down on his clipboard, and he told me that I had a rare condition that only 5% of males have. And the next thing he told me, I'll never forget. He said, "You'll never have children." Ooh, talk about things not looking like how you thought. Some mistake. Must be some mistake. Aside from the way that he delivered the news, he was just doing his job. I don't know why or how this came out of me, because I had such a whirlwind of thoughts flying through my head when he said those words to me. But I was holding my wife's hand. I stood up and I picked her up with me. And I said, "Doctor, we may not have children the way you think we will have children, but we will have children." I thanked him. And we walked out of that clinic in Hershey that day. Car ride home, about 45 minutes, looking at my beautiful wife, Stacy, knowing she didn't sign up for this. And it was my fault. Talk about an exit. I wanted to give her one. I didn't want her to take it, but I felt like it was the right thing to do. And so I said, honey, I know that this was hard news to hear, but the reality of this is you heard the doctor. You deserve to have your own children. And I don't want to hold you back. So as much as I love you, as much as I know, this isn't what we thought, I don't want you to ever feel like you're missing out. And she looked at me with her tear-filled eyes and she said, "Stop being ridiculous. I love you. And if God wants us to have children, we will have children." That's my wife, Stacy. That's my rock. So I shared with you, we definitely have children. Aviana Sophia was born in 2005. Zayden Michael was born in 2006. And then Milani Leone squeaked in 2007. Still had Sade Freeland Howard now is her married name. I consider her my daughter. One of the greatest honors of my life was getting to walk that girl down the aisle. So proud of her and her beautiful family. When things do not look like we think they're supposed to look like, we lose faith. But you know what? Sometimes they're better than you could have even imagined, because I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't change it. Oh my gosh. They're my hearts. They're my soul. They're my everything. It was not what it was supposed to look like, but I'm glad. I'm so glad. That's my hallelujah. That's my amen. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. That divine moment of faith, keeping faith, that changed our lives. One day, if I ever have the privilege of meeting you face to face and you remind me of this session of the talk, I'll be happy to share with you the story of how it happened, because it's a pretty miraculous story within itself. But I want to go back to you. What are you dealing with right now? What challenges are you facing right now? What walls are you facing? What is testing your faith right now? Maybe it's not anything to do with COVID. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's a relationship with a loved one, with a friend. Maybe it's, you know, that you want more, but you feel stuck. Don't you lose faith. You're exactly where you're supposed to be right now. You're exactly where you're supposed to be right now. Clarity is a gift. Clarity is a gift. I want to share this with you. I have a younger brother who came to live with me when he was 16 and I was in my 20s, and we were going to the movies. I wasn't planning on including this in the Spark Talk, but it seems poignant. We were going to the movies, and he wanted to sit in the very front row when we got to the movie. And I kept telling him how stupid that was. I'm like, bro, that's the dumbest idea ever. What are you talking? Why? You won't be able to see anything. And he's going, I'm stupid. You're stupid. We're right there. We got the best seats in the house. It's the front row. So he's arguing with me. I'm arguing with him. I'm like, okay, bro, if you want, we'll go. We'll sit in the front row just like you want. 16 years old. He had it figured out. No problem. We take the seat and we're both like this. So about 3.5 minutes of this, and he smacks me on my lap. He goes, hey, let's move back. Let's move back. So we move back. What's the point of sharing that? Sometimes we're so close, you can't see it. Nothing's clear. You're so close. Sometimes you have to back away from it. And thank you for those reactions. You have to back away from it for things to become clear for you, right? But yet you're arguing. Because logically, the closer I am, the better I'm going to see it. Logically. But in reality, it's not really the case, is it? Once you back away enough from it and you look at everything and you can see the detail, everything becomes clear. Things begin to make sense. Most important thing, don't lose faith in that. So I just want to wrap up real quick because I think that I want to be mindful of time. Spark, it's an acronym. I'm giving you words, but I could easily plug in and interchange other words. You could easily plug in and change other words with each letter that I give you. It's a tool that I use. I've used my entire life. I didn't even realize I was using it until somebody encouraged me to put it down. And then the word spark came to me in a dream, and then I started to break it down step by step. And so now here I am sharing this with all of you beautiful people today in the hopes that it might spark something in you, and then that you might go and spark something in someone else. Spark, self-awareness, S, self-awareness. Know where you're starting from. Where are you right now? And be honest. Don't you lie. Don't you lie to yourself. Where are you? Stop blaming people around you. You're the common denominator. How you process things, the meaning you attach to things determines how you will respond to things. How are you responding? If you're responding unhealthy, pay attention, right? Try something different. Try something different. Scratch it off your list. If that doesn't work, try something else. Get up. Try it again. Try it differently. You'll figure it out. The path will reveal itself, but you got to keep moving. You got to be aware. Destination is there. Your destiny's there. It's not moving. You are. Which direction you're going in? Self. Passion, P, purpose. Don't you let anything, whether it's COVID or anything else, rob you of that. Look at where you are at this point. Look at the obstacles you've been able to overcome in your life. We could sit down and talk about many. I'm sure there's some popping in your head right now thinking, I remember that time. I never thought I'd get through it. But man, look, you did. Look, here you are. And as much as COVID's driving us all crazy, here you are. And you're doing a heck of a job. You're doing a heck of a job. Could you do better? Probably. Me too. We can always do better, right? Are we complacent with coping? Passion, purpose. Don't you let COVID or anything else rob you of that. Action, accountability. Turn down the noise. You start getting those negative thoughts, catch yourself. That's where the power lives, when you can start to catch yourself. Remember, when I was on my way home after arguing with my boss, and I'm realizing, you know what? I'm spending all this time and emotion blaming him. This is my fault. I let him get the best of me. He's just being true to who he consistently is. I need to switch things up. I need to handle this differently. I need to act differently. Respect, R, self-respect. Can't give to others what you don't have for yourself. You're worth it. You're worth it. You got people who love you. You need to be the first one. You need to be the first one. I don't know how spiritual you are, but I'll say it. God loves you. Keep faith. And if you're not a spiritual person, that's fine too. If you believe that, everything started with a big bang, that's okay. That's okay. You have the power to create. You can create your world. You live in that world. Whatever that world is, that's your creation. You create your world for yourself. I believe different. I behave different. You believe different. You behave different. We can both get to the same destination, ultimately, to happiness, to fulfillment, right? One of my most consistent prayers is one that I pray for myself, and I wanted to close out with you guys. I wanted to pray for you guys here. May God continue to bless each of us with continued strength, clarity, and patience. May God continue to bless each of us with strength, clarity, and patience to empower us to be able to spark the greatness that you were created in and with and for, and use that greatness to spark the same in the lives of others. You can. You are every day with your profession, with what you do. I am in complete awe of each and every one of you because I don't know that I could do it. And here you are. Thank you so much for allowing me this today. It's been an absolute highlight of my life to be able to be with you educators because, again, I shared with you starting off this talk, some of my favorite people in my life have been educators. Mr. Farmer, may you rest in peace, sir. The day I met you was the day my life changed. And your beautiful daughter, Emily, here, though you helped us to orchestrate this today, is a gift that I don't take for granted. It's a heartfelt thank you. Thank you all for helping me to spark. I appreciate you tremendously. If there's any questions, I'm happy to entertain. I know we're probably approaching the hour mark, and so I want to open up the floor. And I thank you so much for your reactions. You all are so kind. Thank you so very much for that. What a great honor to be with you.
Thank you so much, Lenny, for sharing with us today. Thank you for sharing your story that we can take the spark as directors and use that moving forward. And for the CIMCs that are going to continue this conference and start this conference, keep that in mind as they're learning the next few days. Thank you very much. And I know everybody's already been having reactions and giving Lenny a round of applause. So
thank you, guys.
Please feel free to do that as well. Thank you so much.